Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jenrette Thomas.
Welcome everyone to the Esquire Coaching Radio Show. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today. As you know, Esquire Coaching is a national coaching and consulting firm that's dedicated to helping attorneys achieve extraordinary whole life success. And to that end, we discuss a full range of topics from building business to getting a job to work-life balance and everything in between. Today we have a very special guest who's going to talk to us about The Hour of the Wolf, an experiment in ageless living, which is the book that our dear guest Paul Lipton had written. So Paul is the author of The Hour of the Wolf. He also writes the blog The Ageless Experiment at theagelessexperiment.com. Paul asks all of us to put age aside and live each day to the fullest. Paul is a graduate of Penn State University with a BA in political science and a JD from Washington University Law School in St. Louis. Paul has been a trial attorney for over 40 years. He's a frequent speaker on the topics of professionalism, ethics, and living a balanced life in a world that seems so out of balance. Paul currently resides in Boulder, Colorado with his wife, Margie. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And I think this is such an important topic. So before we dive into your book and the message in it, tell us a little bit about your own journey into this concept of the ageless experiment.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ann. The concept is basically this. I was, like so many of us, working 24/7 and wanting to achieve professionally what you can achieve. And as a trial lawyer and as a lawyer generally, we know that time becomes very precious. But I found myself just constantly working and not finding a balance at all. After I graduated law school, my dad died, and I write in Hour of the Wolf that my dad died and then my mom died. And I developed a physical condition, which I discuss, trigeminal neuralgia, which I won't go into detail, but I write about it, and that it had a very dramatic effect upon me. And what I decided was that time, we have this finite window of time. It's a very limited time, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it in a really positive way by that saying that nobody gets out of life alive. And once we embrace that and say, look, we have this limited window of time, how are we using this precious gift that we've been given of our life and time? And I said, as I got older, and ailments kick in, and you're working, and you see you're not there for the kids' school play because you have a meeting to go to. I said, no, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a way to calendar yourself into your life, to really appreciate the gift, and how then to be successful and at the same time be successful in your own life. And that's really was the germ and the seed of the Ageless Experiment and The Hour of the Wolf.
I love it. I love that, especially calendaring yourself into your schedule. I love that. So talk to us about what is The Hour of the Wolf.
Yes. The Hour of the Wolf is, and I think it's a fairly universal thing. The Hour of the Wolf is 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's called the Midnight Mind, the Witching Hour. But the Hour of the Wolf is at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when so many of us, and I used to, you wake up with a start. Something's racing through your mind, and all of a sudden you wake up, if you look at the clock, and it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's that moment where you awfulize things, where, you know, some small thing all of a sudden it's exaggerated in your mind, and you're filled with some regrets or what's happening. You know, many people go through that, I call it, you know, the midlife crisis, where what just happened here? My life is spinning away, and I'm just this, you know, I'm in the rat race, and what happened to the dream? So I would wake up and I would say, okay, what's going on here? And then I studied it, and you know, legend has it that in the hour of the wolf, that's when most children are born and most people die. It's that time when daylight seems like it's never going to come. You know, you look at the clock and it's 2 o'clock, and you think a half hour's gone by, and it's 2:01. And because it's the darkest time of the night. So I decided to write about how people get into it, but how to get out of it, how to sleep well at night, and how to give yourself a break. So that's the concept of the hour of the wolf.
I love that. And, you know, I know that I myself have experienced that 2, 3 a.m. start, where it typically only happens when you are really stressed or very unhappy about something. It's almost like your body's way of saying, hey, look, there's an unresolved issue that we really need to, you know, you can't numb with too much work and so forth at this time, so it sort of wakes you up.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about it, Ann, is that, and when I've given lectures on this, people in the audience start laughing, because I would say, okay, 2 o'clock in the morning, it's the hour of the wolf, daylight seems like it's an eternity away, and then out of frustration, you actually email or text someone. You actually write to someone and say, you know, I was thinking about so-and-so, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the shocking thing is you get an email back because someone else is, and then you write back, you say, oh, you're up too. Yes, I'm up too. And I'll discuss that, and I'll see people in the audience nodding their head, going, yep.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
So, you know, so I would say, okay, this is a universal concept. Something doesn't take on a life of its own unless it has a universality to it. And I said, all right, so then how did that happen? And how do we get out of it? And for me, and everyone's journey is different, but for me, it was certain decisions that I made that I had regrets over. As I said, you know, not being home to help the kids with the homework because I was getting ready for a trial. Not taking the time to balance it and say, I want to get home, have dinner with the family, and then I'll work in the office at home or go back to the office. Or I'll figure out a better way to partition my time so that I'm there for the people that really matter. I mean, why are we doing this? We're doing this, hopefully, to have a successful life, but a successful life has to be defined as something more than financial successful life. It has to be a successful life where you have a good marriage, that you're involved in the kids' activities. You know, that's how you define success. So in Hour of the Wolf, I talk about how do we make choices so that we can reframe what does value mean to us? What does wealth mean to us? How do you define wealth? How do you define worth? And that is where I think you have to go, especially in a profession that is as intense as the law is and as being a litigator is.
Absolutely. And I have to say, just as a personal aside, I am so glad to hear this coming from you as a man. I think a lot of times when we talk about having a balanced life, people assume that this is a gender-based discussion, but it really isn't. It is across the board. So I'm thrilled that you have been open about it, and it just makes so much sense. So
yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I wanted to just dive into a little bit about, talk to us about your tips on how to overcome stress.
Sure. And there are a couple of things. One of the items that I have, I talk about that there are 5 decisions that we make, 5 choices that we make. And we are, after all is said and done, the sum of our choices. I mean, we are. So here's 5 decisions that I'd like the reader and your audience to think about. Number 1, health, taking care of yourself. I've literally had people say to me, and I'm sure you've heard it too, I don't have time to go to the doctor. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to go to the gym. And what I'm saying is you have to make time for you. So the first decision you have to make is that you matter, that your health matters, that you are going to take care of yourself. I don't care if it is getting up just a half hour earlier and meditating, or getting up 15 minutes earlier and stretching, and not the first thing you do in the morning is grab the iPhone. Or the first thing you do is open the computer and have that light hit you, and all of a sudden you're off to the races. So the first choice you make in having a balanced life is waking up and saying, no, I'm going to find some time to stretch, to work out. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Take a walk outside, not walking outside looking at your phone, but walking outside connecting with your life, connecting with the dog barking, and connecting with, the people in the neighborhood as you walk along and say good morning. Just connect with you. So one decision is health. As I said, calendar your health in. The second choice that we make is this: family and friends matter. This is the reason why you're doing what you're doing. I've said and I write that the greatest asset we have is time. That asset is not fungible. One day, once it's gone forever. So often we spend our time with those people who don't matter to us. And yet the ones who really make our life worthwhile, we ignore them. The family, the friends. So you have to choose when you're with them. I know people have to work, but when you're with your family, be with them. Everyone is on demand now 24/7, but we are not machines. We're not a computer. We need downtime. Downtime is important to stay in the moment with those who matter to you. So figure out how to do that. How to, when you're having dinner, shut the phone off. Shut it off. And say, I'm now with the people who matter to me, and have that conversation with me now. It's still with my kids, but my grandkids, and I really want to be with them, and I want to watch them as they're living in the moment. The third decision that you make, and I label it spirit, and by that I mean whether it's religion or nature, but connecting you to the larger story. So often we see people get lost in the minutia of the day and the gossip and the nonsense of the day. And you have a story to tell. We each have a bold, exciting story to tell, but you have to connect to the mountain. I ride an hour of the wolf when I went to the Himalayas, when I crossed the ice fields on Mont Blanc. I did that because I really wanted to connect with the mountain. And one lesson I learned is that how we live our life each day is the meaning of our life. So we want to connect to a larger story. The fourth decision, that choice we can make, is to keep learning something new. There's a passion in learning something new. And that's either at work or at play. I mean, right now I'm learning how to play the guitar. And for me to sit with the guitar and sit with an instructor and start learning to do that, I find such joy in that. And the last thing, and this is the one I've gotten the most comments on, and I find it fascinating. Have fun. You know, this is, we're supposed to, this is our one life as far as we know. And if you're not enjoying it, if you're not doing something you enjoy, if you're always just miserable and saying, I hate Monday, I can't wait for hump day Wednesday, oh, thank God it's Friday. I told a young person today, I said, people say, when you go for a job interview, they say, well, what's your 5-year plan? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I said to them, I want to reframe that. 10 years is 3,650 days, give or take a leap year. Close enough. Well, that's about 500 Mondays, okay? Mm-hmm. Approximately. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. That's 10 years, 500 Mondays. 500 Saturday nights is 10 years. So when you say, I hate Mondays, well, Monday never did anything to you. Monday's a good day.
That's true.
You almost want to say, thank God it's Monday. It's kind of like, thank God it's Tuesday. Thank God I have today. But maybe it's a choice you've made. It's not today. It's the choice you've made during the day that creates the issue. So what I say to you, and I say to the reader, is find fun things to do. You're entitled to have fun. I ride motorcycles. I love motorcycles. And for me, getting on my motorcycle is the best thing in the world because no one can call you. There's no radio, there's no TV, there's no phone. It's a very zen moment to be, because you must be in the moment. So those are 5 type choices I talk about in Hour of the Wolf.
Oh, those are excellent. I mean, I love every single one of the things that you talked about. So now let's talk a little bit about the true value of time. What, in your opinion, is the true value of time?
Here's the way I see it. Time is the only commodity that we have. We've been given this gift of time. The day itself has value. And what happens, especially with lawyers, is that we're in the business of selling our time. Time has become a commodity. Mm-hmm. And, you have 0.6 or an hour's worth of time is X, and you're in the process of selling your time. And what I want to tell the reader and your listeners is that time is so precious that you need to reframe the discussion so that who do you spend your time with? A single day. I had a comment with a young lawyer today, and I said, understand that time is the only thing that you really own. And I often think that if I heard someone say recently, when they get to the pearly gates, they said, what do you think the one question God is going to ask you? And the person said, God's going to say, so what'd you do with the gift? What'd you do with the gift I gave you? the time. What'd you do with the time I gave you? Were you a solution to a problem or the problem? Were you trying to plow the field to help other people find a pathway, or were you an obstruction? I'm asking people to reframe the journey and understand there's this limited window of time. How do you choose to use it? And all the money in the world is not going to buy you another day. So look at that, Anne, I keep on thinking that if time was exchanged on the stock market, maybe people would take it more seriously.
Oh, I think you're so right about that. And the challenges within our community of lawyers, that there is such a drive to be successful. And I believe in ambition, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
it really has to be balanced, like you said. So this kind of brings me to another question that I have, which is, how do we become the hero of our own life story?
Yes, and that's what I write about. Let me share that with you. What I say in Hour of the Wolf is simply this. We are writing our own story. We're writing the story of our life. Now, at my age, I'm in my 60s, so I'm older than you and a lot of folks that are listening. But you get to a point where you have a moment of look back, where you're saying, okay, I've written this story. This is the story of my life. And what you want to say is this: you don't want to be a big player in your own life. You don't want to be the villain in your own life. I don't want to be a victim in my own life. I want my life to be a heroic story. What that means is that to be a hero, you have to go through some dark moments, because that's how a hero is created. Joseph Campbell in Hero with a Thousand Faces writes about the fact that there's a journey a hero goes through, and one of the aspects of the journey is going through the belly of the whale, going through a bad time. And what I'm saying is, don't be pulled down by it. Learn from it, and say, this is a bad moment, this is a bad time, but I have a heroic story to tell. So what is the lesson I can learn from the darkness? What can I learn from this bad moment that can then teach me something so I can be heroic? And I will tell you that the hero's journey is a solo journey. Friends can be there, family can be there to give you advice, suggestions, help along the way, but in the end, you have to believe that you're on a hero's journey. And I write that the hero's journey is a moment in time where you say, I refuse to be the victim. And, so you are the screenwriter, you're the director, you're the producer, and hopefully you're the star of an epic movie that is the story of you. How do you choose to tell that story?
It's such a great way to look at your life, because I think it's so easy to get pulled into a victim mentality, especially, whether it's, I can't find a good job, or the job I'm in, there's too many billable hours, and I'm, just really falling into a negative way of observing and looking at what's happening in your life. So reframing it as, okay, yep, you're going through some dark spots, but so what? What kind of character are you going to come out as? Are you going to be defeated, or are you going to be the hero? I just love that analogy so much.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Anne. Lawyers, as you well know because of your expertise, lawyers are a profession right now that there's a high rate of depression. Yeah. And there's a high rate of people so stressed out. And what I want to say to everyone is, look, you have choices. And let's use the wisdom to to say, let's make some good choices here. And part of that is I want to have a hero story. I want to be able to look back. Sooner or later, we all look back and say, did we do ourselves proud? Are we satisfied? Are we satisfied with the story we told? You know, when people sit down and talk about you and they say, tell me what that story was all about. Tell me what Ann was about. And if someone were to say, you know, Ann really tried to reframe the journey for all of us. Ann tried to establish a path, a light at the end of the dark tunnel to help us through the hour of the wolf. Then you have you're telling a hero story. And what better way to live a life than that way?
I totally agree. And you really talk about this in the book, too, where you talk about why core beliefs are so important, you know, that why when you're faced with challenges, it really shows you who you truly are. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And you know, it's that comment that character counts. You know, character is important, and how you define yourself to you. I use a phrase in the book that sounds like an oxymoron, but I don't think it is. I call it future history, and by that I mean that as we're living our life each day, we are writing our history. Because when you look back, you've lived your history. And how do you get through the hour of the wolf? Well, character matters. Your core beliefs, your belief that, no, there's a larger story and I'm here telling a more important story than how much money I made today or who I made miserable today. No, you want to be the one that can smile, have the twinkle in the eye, and say, you know, it was a good day today. Yeah, you know, I didn't accomplish all I wanted to accomplish, but I'm going to go home and give my wife or husband a hug and give my significant other a hug. I'm going to tuck my kids in tonight, and I'm going to tell them a bedtime story. And I share this with you because for me, it says it all to a great extent. When I used to tuck my kids in, and I was rushing around and doing stuff, I invariably say, can you read me a second story? It's always the second story. And so often a parent would say, I read your story. And I started to embrace, yes, the second story becomes the more exquisite story. And I'd say, yes. I said, let's read a second story. Take the time to be with those who matter. And the way you defeat the hour of the wolf is by living the real definition of who you are and embracing yourself, embracing your day, and saying, I matter. And I matter to these people. And that's how you find that balance. So you can work hard, but then you go home and you're totally with your family.
Paul, that is such a wonderful sentiment to really, you know, we're out of time, but I know.
Our listeners, it went by so fast, Ann.
I know. Okay, first I just want to say, listeners, go get this book. Go get it, because if you don't, first of all, it will inspire you, it will motivate you, and it will serve as something to be mindful of so that you don't wait too long. So tell our listeners how they can reach you and get a copy of the book.
Sure. Amazon, Hour of the Wolf, An Experiment in Ageless Living is on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. Either one. If you go to the agelessexperiment.com, I write fairly regularly on that about living agelessly. And by that I mean, I know we're running out of time, by that I mean just living, the day knows no age. You're living an ageless day. Live it that way.
Beautiful. You are amazing, Paul. You're such an inspiration. And I'm so grateful to have had you here.
My pleasure, a delight. I wish you the very, very best. You're doing wonderful work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, listeners, so join us next week, and let's keep this conversation going. Join us on our LinkedIn page or Facebook. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you are going to have an ageless experiment. And until then, we will talk to you next week on the Blog Talk Radio Show. Take care.